The Kansas City Chiefs have seen some major departures from Kansas City through the legal tampering period and the first week of free agency, and they've also made some moves, made some nice deals, I think. So appreciate you if you're listening. Welcome back to the podcast. Papa Schro Knows, available on Substack, Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well. Check out the blog if you have not already over at papaschroknows.substack.com. Check out all my writings there, and I've done a couple of articles on the Kansas City Chiefs already, and what they've been doing in free agency. This is the first time I got back for the podcast here in a little bit, but nevertheless here with you to go over kind of what has gone down so far these first couple weeks of free agency. And the first move we're going to talk about is the tackle, Jawaan Taylor from the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think is a pretty good signing. I think it's an upgrade from Orlando Brown. I know that's been kind of up for debate with some people, considering really his grade is what I've seen a lot of people say is his PFF grade, and not as good of a run blocker, which is true because Jawaan Taylor is not the run blocker that Orlando Brown is, but that's not what the Chiefs are looking for. The Chiefs are looking for a pass blocker, and they got younger, more athletic at the position. He is a right tackle, transitioning over from the right side to the left side. $60 million of his contract is guaranteed. And but the brilliant thing of what Veach did is this first year, 5.8 cap hit for Jawaan Taylor in 2023. So that kind of opened some things up for the Chiefs. They maneuvered a little bit of money as well around with Patrick Mahomes' deal, kind of pushing some of that money down the road. And I can't think off the top of my head. I think it was open up, I want to say $12 million in cap space. But looking at the differences between Orlando Brown and Jawaan Taylor, and this is the main reason why I think most of us, Chiefs fans are saying that Jawaan Taylor is an upgrade. Just looking at the pressures, 58 from Orlando Brown last year and 21 for Jawaan Taylor. That translated to just one QB hit and 15 hurries from Jawaan Taylor compared to Orlando Brown giving up 10 hits on Patrick Mahomes and 44 hurries. This is all via PFF. But again, like I said, the run blocking is one thing that Orlando Brown definitely did very well. He was very good in the run game for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think he will be missed. I mean, and awesome to see what he was able to do with the Kansas City Chiefs for 2 years, and really helped anchor that offensive line. I mean, definitely had a lot of trouble at times, and we won't go into all of that too much, but he is now officially a Cincinnati Bengal. If you have not heard on Orlando Brown Jr. yet, I think it was I want to say it was a 4-year deal. I know Taylor's deal was a 4-year deal. And hold on, let me check on that real quick. Off to the Bengals. I'm still kind of shocked on that. Yeah, so it's a 4-year deal that Orlando Brown's going to be under through 2026 with the Bengals. Let's see, total $64 million. But he's getting just 10.3 on the cap this year, 16 next year, 15 in 2025, and then just under 22 million in 2026. So that'll be kind of that year where the Bengals will probably make a big decision. We'll see what Orlando Brown does. I think maybe it may be a little bit better fit for him in somewhat of a, I don't want to say slower offense, but just not as much moving around in the pocket Joe Burrow does as Patrick Mahomes. So I think that'll help Orlando Brown out a little bit, as he's not, in comparison to Jawaan Taylor, what you're going to is a much more athletic tackle that I think is going to help the Kansas City Chiefs a lot more than Orlando Brown was able to. I just don't know if it catered to his style. Now, I was surprised when he didn't go to Chicago, because I definitely saw Orlando Brown Jr. going to the Chicago Bears. Ryan Poles said he didn't really fit the scheme, which again, kind of, similar to what the Kansas City Chiefs do, and with Justin Fields back there, a guy that runs around a lot and, had an amazing season running the ball as a quarterback last year. But, and maybe just off of what they saw with Orlando Brown from the Chiefs, and a lot of speculation was that most of the league saw him as a right tackle, and he's another guy that the Chiefs went out and got that played a little bit of left tackle, while I can't think off the top of my head who was hurt, but while one of the Ravens their starting left tackle was down, he flipped over the left tackle from the right tackle. Chiefs liked what they saw. They went out and made a move, got Orlando Brown. And Orlando Brown is not going to play anything but left tackle. And so that was another thing that, he wanted that opportunity to play left tackle, and the Bengals have given him that opportunity. So on the next departure, you got Juju Smith-Schuster. This one was rough, I thought, just because Juju was so good in certain moments for the Kansas City Chiefs throughout 2022, and just his route running ability was really, really good for the Chiefs, and complemented Kelsey very well. You could tell when he wasn't out there. And, MVS stepped up big in the championship game and helped get the Chiefs to the Super Bowl. Obviously, MVS was very quiet in the Super Bowl, but, he did step up when he needed to, but I just see Juju as more consistent than an MVS, and he's not another, I don't want to reduce Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney to gadget players, but, just a different style of receiver. You got your really fast guys that you can do a lot of different things with, but then you got your route runners like Juju Smith-Schuster, and so I think the Chiefs we'll see what they do to replace him, because obviously I think they're in the running for Odell Beckham Jr., but they're also in the running to possibly trade with Arizona to get DeAndre Hopkins. I think both of those are still on the table, especially with the moves that they made through and through. I guess we're going through the departures now. Kind of talked about the Jawan Taylor, so we'll just keep rolling through these departures. Juju Smith-Schuster to the Patriots, 3 years, $33 million, and a good contract. Same thing that Jacoby Myers got. I thought that was interesting. Jacoby Myers left, went to Vegas, and Juju Smith-Schuster ended up getting the same deal with the Patriots. So obviously they were just ready to move past Jacoby Myers. Andrew Wiley, the right tackle, off to the Commanders to play under Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator there. Good for him. He got a nice little payday as well. And after these guys, no sacks in the Super Bowl. It was definitely a sight to behold after, especially after everything, all the talk leading up to the Super Bowl, and how dominant that Eagles defense was. But $24 million over 3 years, so solid payday for Andrew Wiley, guaranteed 1.5 first year, second year 2.5. Nice, good contract. He's got the last two, so this is going to be a backloaded contract that the Commanders have with him. So good idea. I mean, he definitely stepped up in 2022. He had a rough start, but when you look at the tackles, like they get a lot of praise for the Super Bowl, and they should, and what they did down the stretch. But I mean, neither one of these tackles, Wiley or Orlando Brown Jr., were great for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2022. I don't think. So we'll see how it pans out for the Bengals and the Commanders. Let's see. I know we've got at least 3 more to go through. Fullback Michael Burton off to the Broncos. I think it was I think they put a non-exclusive tender on Michael Burton, and the Broncos made an offer. The Chiefs did not match it to keep Michael Burton, so Michael Burton is officially a Denver Bronco. Juan Thornhill also signed a nice contract with the Cleveland Browns to go play safety. He's already, his first day after announcing that he's signing, he's already recruiting McCole Hardman to come to Cleveland. Super interesting contract, as I think it was, I can't remember, it was 42 or 44% of the contract is paid after the void years. So very interesting contract because of the Deshaun Watson structure of his contract and all that guaranteed money. And it'll be interesting, almost a Bobby Bonilla effect. Because I think the contract's only going through 3 years, but he's still getting paid until 2029 is what it's showing on Over the Cap. So that's the void year start 2026. So interesting stuff that they've got set up for the Cleveland Browns, I would say, and the way that their cap situation's set up. Colin Saunders off to the Saints. That one was rough for me. Colin Saunders, one of my favorite players on that defense, and just the energy he brought the team, and how well he played down the stretch and got the quote unquote sack in the Super Bowl. We down the road we'll just see it as a sack, and he ran Jalen Hurts out of bounds, I think, for a 1-yard loss, and that was the only sack of the Super Bowl, I'm pretty sure. But he's got a 3-year deal with the Saints. Same kind of deal here, where they've got a couple of years after the void years that they're gonna be paying Colin Saunders. So he is signed with the Saints for the next 3 years, and he will join other former Chiefs. Tyrann Mathieu, I don't know why I couldn't think of his name for a minute, the Honey Badger, and Daniel Sorensen, as well as Tano Passanio. I actually didn't know Passanio was down there until I think it was last week. They were talking about him on the radio, and said Passanio was also down there. So you got quite a few former Chiefs there on that Saints defense. So for the departures, I don't think that anything too crazy. I think both tackles gave the Chiefs problems this year. They're both departing. The fullback, Michael Burton, it'll be interesting to see where they go with that. Are they going to go with the fullback, or maybe they don't even run with the fullback next year? Juan Thornhill was, another one that's obviously replaceable, but he's had a nice role on this team. He's finally kind of gotten back to where he was before he blew his knee out. I want to say that was his second year in the league. So just he had a good run with the Chiefs. Interested to see what he'll do with the Browns, but and we'll go into this. I think that they got a pretty comparable replacement to kind of fill in where Juan Thornhill would have been, and then Colin Saunders on the interior. I mean, right now the Chiefs don't have, I think, only Tershawn Wharton and Chris Jones are under contract as defensive tackle. Chris Jones, another kind of talked about him, and in the offseason, if we'll see a deal get made. I assume we may see a deal get made right before camp, but I doubt they push it to next year. Chris Jones has also said that he's not going to play for any other organization but the Chiefs. So, things can change. We'll see what happens with that. But right now, as of right now, those are the only two interior guys you got on the defensive line. I don't think Noddy is under contract either. I don't see him on this list right here, but I don't think he's under contract. Yeah, he's up here. So Derek Noddy's also an unrestricted free agent. So nobody there. Other Chiefs that have not been signed still out there. Frank Clark, Carlos Dunlap, Noddy, as we mentioned. Chad Henney's retired, obviously. Ronald Jones, who on Monday is going to meet with the Cowboys. I think he's one of, I think, 3 different running backs they're hosting for some workouts. So good for Rojo. See what he can do in Dallas. Blake Bell, McCole Hardman is a big one, which I think at this point, we'll see, but I think there's an outside shot that he may be back on maybe a 1-year prove-it deal with the Kansas City Chiefs next year. I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sure if the Chiefs are 100% interested in, going back to McCole Hardman after this year, but he's still only 25, but he's also still injured, so Deion Bush, still a free agent. Jerick McKinnon as well. Justin Watson, Darius Harris, and Jordan Franks, and Brandon Williams, defensive lineman and tight end. Nick Allegretti was brought back. Kind of go through some of these guys that were tendered. Jody Fortson, Tommy Townsend, Tershawn Wharton we talked about, Shane Buechele, Prince Tega Wannagoa, Nick Allegretti, and Cornell Powell all tendered and will be back with the Kansas City Chiefs next year. So now let's get into the rest of the signings. We talked about Jawan Taylor. I like what it does. And really, so before we get into it, how it affects the Chiefs' plans for the offseason and the draft, and part of why it's taken me forever to try to get through this mock draft 2.0 of just kind of trying to figure out where the hell the Chiefs are going with this and, what the plan is, just because I feel like it's been, they've done so much to make this draft so flexible. It's actually pretty crazy, and I think Veach is doing a phenomenal job, because a lot of the stuff, like the Jawan Taylor signing, was kind of out of left field. I don't think a lot of people expected the Kansas City Chiefs to go after Jawan Taylor, and how swift and decisive they did it. It just goes to show that front office is always working. They're always scouting. They played the Jaguars twice, once in the playoffs. I think it was week 10, and then in the divisional round, they played the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, and watched him play. So the next big signing right after that, it was Charles Omenihu from the San Francisco 49ers, and that one just a wonderful deal, and a perfect fit for Spags. Very versatile, can play the inside, can play the edge, very good pass rusher, and the number 2 in San Francisco last year to Nick Bosa. And obviously that defensive line is just monstrous, one of the best pass rushers in the NFL last year. So to see him come over, Omenihu, I think will add, a big step for the Kansas City Chiefs. And so now, even with these first 2 signings, you have a tackle and you have a edge rusher. Those are your 2 biggest needs, really. And now you've got a little bit of flexibility. Now, the first couple of rounds, I don't think not necessarily mean as much, but I don't think that it's as, pressing an issue. You have at least tackle, I think, to me, is a more pressing issue, just for the simple fact that you still don't have a right tackle. Even if Jawan Taylor's going to play left, you don't have a right still. So you're going to have to figure something out. And I just don't see anyone out there on the market. I don't think there's anyone, there was thought maybe Laramie Tunsil would be traded for, but obviously that's a done deal, as he got a new contract with the Texans this weekend. So for the draft, it just makes it that much more flexible. And you don't necessarily have to have a top edge rusher. You don't necessarily have to have a top tackle anymore, I don't think. I think still that number 1 pick, for me, the way I've been mock drafting it, I still see a tackle. I just think that at that point, that's where you have to use your number 1 pick. You have to get another tackle to complement Jawan Taylor. So past that, the Kansas City Chiefs also, heading into the weekend, made 2 more splash signings. One in Drew Tranquill, the former linebacker of the Los Angeles Chargers, and safety from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Edwards. Both of these, again, perfectly just flexibility it gives you. Brett Veach is really moving in a smart way. Both guys, $3 million deals for 1 year, with incentives to go up to $5 million possibly for both of them. So, I mean, getting 2 guys for $6 to $10 million a piece for the next year. I mean, to kind of like with Danny Tranquill, I mean, that, to me, I graded that as an A- signing. And just for the simple fact, the value they got in it and the caliber of player they got. And as I was writing that, I didn't think about this too much. I listened to the Locked On podcast with Ryan Tracy and Chris Clark, and they talked about a possible 3-4 and switching the defense. And that would make sense because then you've got Tranquil and Bolton in the middle, which is just phenomenal. And then on the edges you'd have Leo Chanel and Willie Gay, obviously. So very interesting move because at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like you really have room for a Drew Tranquil when you've got Willie Gay, or at least in a 4-3, you got Willie Gay and Leo Chanel, and then Bolton in the middle, which, there's similarities, but, both the green dot guys, and with Drew Tranquil, his pass coverage, though, is just phenomenal. And that is one thing that he's kind of a tweener in between safety and linebacker that maybe he could kind of put in some reps safety-wise. I mean, he can play deep in coverage. One thing I highlighted in that piece when I talked about Drew Tranquil coming over and giving this grade was week 1 when they were playing the Raiders. And I watched tape on that game because the Chiefs were getting ready to play the Chargers that following week. And, that was the first thing that leapt off the page. I was just like, okay, Drew Tranquil is, pretty good. And his coverage is pretty damn good. He got the interception to Derek Carr early in the game and, just read him. And it was a deep middle that he got him on, and a great play. So I'm really excited to see what he can do with this Kansas City Chiefs defense, and definitely elevating the bar. Mike Edwards is another guy. You're looking for a guy to disrupt and cause turnovers. From what I've seen of Mike Edwards and some of the tape that I've seen of him, I mean, he just kind of has a feel and he goes for it. He will absolutely attack the ball, and he can score. Once he gets his hands on the ball, he will score. And in fact, since I think it was 2019, he's got the most pick sixes tied with 3. And I can't remember who he's tied for. Minkah Fitzpatrick, and I know Minkah Fitzpatrick. I'm not 100% on the second name, but there was three guys tied with 3 pick sixes for the most since 2019. I'm pretty sure. But anyways, that's in that newsletter. So more additions to the kingdom. So all in all, I mean, I think the Chiefs are having a pretty good offseason. I think this free agency period and tampering period, they've done well. And I think that they've just made so much flexibility with this draft that I think helps them in a lot of different ways. One, that they're not pressed to necessarily go after any one position. Obviously, I think we'd all like to see a solid edge rusher, tackle. For me, I'd like to see a couple of tackles. You definitely want to see somebody on the interior and the defense. But I thought maybe at some point go linebacker. I think that's obviously out of the question now. But man, yeah, the Chiefs have just created so much flexibility for themselves on this draft. And, now maybe you can get rid of a pick. Maybe you're able to trade something. And with the way the receiver market has went, I think that for me personally, I'm looking more towards DeAndre Hopkins than I am or Odell Beckham Jr. And Odell, I could see he tweeted saying that he needs more than $4 million because it's been reported that he wants $20 million a year. Obviously, that's not going to happen. And, at least it's not going to happen for the Kansas City Chiefs or a team that's going to be competing more than likely. And as of right now, just to give an update, the Chiefs are looking at $10 million free in cap space at the moment. So I think that's after everything. I think this has been updated through the weekend because both those signings were announced on Friday. So through the weekend, that leaves them $10 million left. So my thought is, and I'll go look at DeAndre Hopkins as well, but with the Brandon Cooks trade, that really opened, that was a great deal for the Kansas City Chiefs. A 5th rounder and a 6th rounder for Brandon Cooks, and the Houston Texans are going to pay some of that salary hit for this year with Brandon Cooks. This opens that door perfectly. I think DeAndre Hopkins is obviously a step ahead of Brandon Cooks, but I do feel like I definitely would go up to a 4th round and maybe a 3rd rounder. Although I would like to see them try to just get that off with maybe a 4th and 6th for DeAndre Hopkins, but I do think that he's worth a little bit more than Brandon Cooks would have been. But with the Cardinals paying some of that salary and helping that cap hit for this year, because the cap hit right now for DeAndre Hopkins for 2023 is just under $30 million. And that's rough. Yeah, that's just not going to work for the Chiefs with $10 million left. His cap hit for 2024 would be 25 and a half, pretty much. So the contract is definitely rough and something that they'll have to work around. But I definitely think that they can get the Cardinals help to pay that in a deal like that. Not have to give up a ton. Like I said, the Brandon Cooks deal opened that door wide open to me, and I'm not as high on Odell Beckham right now. Just for the simple fact of how much money does he want is really where that's at. Because I mean, in his workouts, he looked great. So I have no, I don't think that I don't think he can't come in and make a big impact on this team. And make a big one for the Kansas City Chiefs, because obviously either one of these guys would be huge for the Chiefs. But I think Odell kind of fits this offense a little bit better than DeAndre Hopkins might. And, that's just something I feel like I've kind of come to realize with the Chiefs. It's like I would love to see them get that, big body receiver that's, physical and will beat, man coverage and, a guy like DeAndre Hopkins or, something like that. But that's just not their style. They Andy Reid, the way he schemes and things like that. I mean, you can't fault them necessarily, but I feel like that's kind of one realization I've kind of come to in the last year or two. But at the same time, I mean, guys like Sky Moore, I'm very excited for the upside Sky Moore may have. And I would love to see him be a lot more involved in the offense, because when he got his chances in that offense this year in 2022, I feel like he really excelled for the Chiefs. It was the punt returning that really killed him. And I think a lot of people's view and perception of Sky Moore, which, fair enough, but he should have never been out there fielding punts in the first place, I don't think. But I think that's pretty much it, going through the signings and departures. And, let me know what you guys are thinking on the Kansas City Chiefs and what they're doing, how you feel about Veach. What are you looking forward to, or what are you looking for most? Is it D-Hop or is it Odell? Is it somebody else? Speaking of which, Darius Slayton, who went back to the Giants, at one point I'd kind of said Darius Slayton wouldn't be a bad idea. Adam Thielen has also signed with Carolina Panthers. So those are 2 more receivers off the board. It's getting very thin out there. I think the Chiefs maybe could work something out with the receiver early, but honestly, I'm a little bit more high on some of these guys later in the draft, because I don't necessarily know if it's coming from the draft. I don't know if the Chiefs can or will get that number 1 receiver kind of guy, and they are very high on Kadarius Toney and think that he can be the number 1. So we'll see. I mean, we've seen it before with a receiver in that style, in Tyreek Hill, and just the way he moved down the field and ran routes, and I don't know. So we'll see what Kadarius Toney will bring to the table this year. But at this point, you're looking at Toney, Moore, MVS. I mean, that's the receiving crew off the top of my head. That's your wide receiver room so far. Cornell Powell, I guess. He's in there, but he's been on the practice squad for the last 2 years now. So I don't know. We'll see what the Kansas City Chiefs decide to do. Again, rate the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this right now. Papashrow knows, or no, excuse me, I said that backwards. Papashrow knows.substack.com. Check out the newsletter. Got new, fresh content rolling out really around the clock right now with the off season going in the NFL. It seems like I can't get away from having something to write about, which is about the exact opposite as I thought it was going to go. Mock Draft 2.0 coming out very soon this week, and I'll have a podcast with that to go with the newsletter as well, and we'll get into the draft. Who do you want to see the Chiefs draft? First, second, third, any rounds? Is there anybody out there that you're just really looking at the Chiefs need to put on this roster for 2023? Let me know. Follow me at Papa_Schro on Twitter, Instagram. I'm always there on Twitter giving my opinions and thoughts on things. So if you want more, follow me on Twitter. Let me know what you think on there. And we'll see you next time.